Madyson Marquette is a scam artist wanted for multiple felonies. She's been involved in fundraising fraud and other scams throughout the years. This is an update on her current activities. If you haven't seen our previous video on her, please click the link in the description below or look for it on this channel. Also, if you're curious about what we're doing, look for our channel trailer in the description below or look for it on this channel. Since our last video, Madyson has been arrested and is currently incarcerated in the Walker County, Texas jail. She is awaiting trial on felony charges of fraudulent filing of financial statement on a $500,000 bond. She's currently charged with this crime but is awaiting to be formally indicted, which should happen in December. Retaliation on a $500,000 bond. The grand jury did determine on this charge also that there was sufficient evidence to return a true bill in the crime of committing the offense of retaliation. This also is a third-degree felony on account of the chief financial officer of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and a misdemeanor charge of harassment. She's being held on a $30,000 bond, which is a Class B misdemeanor. Now, this is a little convoluted, but I'll endeavor to explain it. In Madyson's latest scam, she's promoted a self-styled common law approach in which she claims that referencing her name creates a self-executing contract requiring payment under a personal fee schedule. She claims that by referencing her name, you're entering into this self-executing contract with her, and you have to pay for using her name. So what landed her in jail this time? Madyson now claims to be married to a man serving a life sentence for 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a child. This is the second time this guy's been convicted for similar conduct. In 2014, he was convicted of a crime involving a 15-year-old. According to records, Mark Muskilly sexually assaulted his friend's 13-year-old daughter 3 times in 1 week. According to the affidavit, Muskilly is a friend of the child victim's mother. The first incident occurred when Muskilly stayed overnight after the mother went to bed. The second incident occurred days later at Muskilly's home. The child told investigators that Muskilly took her to Target and bought her a Plan B pill. The third incident occurred 2 days after that when the child went to Muskilly's home to pick up a gaming console. On November 2nd, 2023, in cause number 2022-CR-8025, the state of Texas versus Mark Anthony Muskilly, he was convicted by a jury and the trial court sentenced him to life in jail for 3 counts of sexual assault of a child. And here comes Madyson to insert herself in the situation. On March 21st, 2024, the Bexar County District Clerk received certified mail from Madyson Ray Muskilly. The envelope contained a document titled Actual and Constructive Private and Public Notice. This has later been referred to as the notice. Madyson filed appeal on Mark Muskilly's behalf in the Appellate Court of Texas. Then she began emailing the warden, executive director of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and the chief financial officer of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. These emails were in an attempt to get Muskilly released from jail. When she didn't get her way, she tallied how many times her name was referenced in the email communication between her and these individuals. She then filed UCC-1s for the bills that she sent them for using her name. This caused the executive director of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and the chief financial officer of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice significant financial issues. They reported this crime to the office of the Texas Attorney General, and a detective from that office was assigned to the case. The detective then gathered his evidence and filed the appropriate charges against Madyson. What is a UCC-1? A UCC-1 publicizes a creditor's legal right to seize collateral if the borrower fails to make payments on a loan. It also establishes the creditor's priority over other creditors for collateral. The UCC is a standard set of regulations governing businesses and financial transactions in any state in the United States. So basically, Madyson corresponded with these officials in an attempt to free her husband. She didn't get what she wanted. She sent them her fictitious fee agreement, charged them for every time they used her name. There was never a contract between any of these parties. She then filed UCC-1s collateralizing these people's assets. In addition, she's still up to her old tricks causing trouble and fighting with neighbors and getting evicted. In August of 2023, she was removed from her residence in Converse, Texas. There were incidents there, one of which involved Madyson stating she was going to go get her gun because one of the adjoining neighbors was repairing their fence. The police were called. Reports were made. On October 25, 2024, she was evicted from her residence in Seguin, Texas. Not only was she evicted, she avoided service of process, and additional measures had to be taken by authorities to get her served and ultimately evicted. She was finally served and evicted on May 7, 2024. The eviction stated the reason was failing to pay rent, not allowing management to enter the home for inspection, disturbances and disputes with neighbors that resulted in police presence. Subsequently, while residing in Seguin, Texas, she had an altercation with a neighbor. To no surprise, she claimed that the neighbor entered into a self-executing contract with her and asserted that the neighbor trespassed and committed other infractions according to the self-executing contract. By the way, this isn't a legitimate thing. She sent a bogus notice for the neighbor's infractions. She caused a scene and the police were called yet again. Then, in her infinite wisdom, she filed 5 UCC-1s in an attempt to collect money for the fictitious infractions from her neighbor. The neighbor sued Madyson and was awarded $25,000, $5,000 for each fraudulent filing. Further, the judge awarded the neighbor's attorney's fees in the amount of $11,070.50, court costs in the amount of $1,277.16 for a total judgment against Madyson for $37,347.66. Now, we all know the neighbor will never collect any of that money, but nonetheless, the judgment stands. In addition, the judge nullified the 5 UCC-1 filings. Madyson then moved to New Braunfels, Texas, where she was living when she was arrested on these current charges. So what happens if Madyson is convicted? If convicted on the fraudulent filing of financial statement charge, she could be sentenced to 180 days to 2 years imprisonment and fined up to $10,000. If convicted on the retaliation charges, she could be sentenced from 2 to 10 years and fined up to $10,000 for each conviction. So if she were convicted on both, she could be sentenced from 4 to 20 years in jail and fined up to $20,000. If convicted on the harassment charge, she could be sentenced up to 180 days in county jail and fined up to $2,000. So if she were convicted on all the charges, she could be sentenced up to 22 years, 180 days, and fined up to $24,000. We'll continue to follow her activities and bring you any updates as they happen.